I didn't tell anyone that day what I had discovered. Not my sister. Not the lawyer. And certainly not my son. I went back home quietly, the way I always had. I made tea in the same chipped cup I'd owned for 20 years and sat by the window, watching the sun sink behind the rooftops. The city looked peaceful, almost forgiving. But my chest felt tight, like it always does when truth arrives before you're ready to share it. For weeks, I said nothing. My son, Daniel, on the other hand, said everything. He posted pictures online almost daily. Photos of crystal chandeliers, marble staircases, a swimming pool shaped like a guitar because he thought it was funny. He called it his dream house. He called it proof that he'd made it. People commented with fire emojis and congratulations. Some even wrote, "Your mom must be so proud." I read those comments slowly. Then I closed the app. Daniel never invited me. Not once. At first, I told myself he was busy. Young people are always busy chasing something. Then I told myself the house was probably still unfinished. Then I stopped making excuses altogether. One afternoon, I finally asked him. We were on the phone. He sounded distracted, like always. Papers shuffling. Someone laughing in the background. So, I said gently, "When do I get to see this big house of yours?" There was a pause. Just a breath too long. "Oh, yeah. Soon," he said. "It's kind of far. And there's construction stuff everywhere. Not really safe for you." "For you." I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "I raised you in a house with leaking ceilings and loose wires," I said. "I think I'll survive." He laughed, but it was forced. "Let me settle in first, Mom." "I promise." Promises are easy when you think time is unlimited. A week later, I received a letter in the mail. Not from Daniel. From a developer. Inside was a glossy brochure of the mansion. My son's mansion. The same one from the pictures. The letter thanked me for my long-standing cooperation and referenced an original land agreement. I sat down hard. They weren't writing to Daniel. They were writing to me. That night, I pulled out the old documents I'd kept locked away for decades. Papers my late husband had insisted we never throw out. Deeds, contracts, signatures fading with time. Back then, the land was nothing. Just dirt and weeds on the edge of town. No roads. No lights. Everyone laughed when my husband said it would matter one day. He's wasting money, they said. He's dreaming too big, they said. But he bought it anyway. And when he passed, it became mine. I never sold it. I never transferred it. I simply let developers lease it, carefully. Daniel didn't buy a mansion. He bought a building. On my land. The realization didn't make me angry at first. It made me sad. Because somewhere along the way, my son had decided I was no longer part of his success. That my role had ended once I paid school fees and packed lunches. That the woman who taught him patience and sacrifice had nothing left to offer. I wondered when that happened. Was it when he got his first promotion? When he started wearing suits I couldn't pronounce? Or when he stopped calling unless he needed something? The invitation finally came 2 weeks later. A text message. "Housewarming this Saturday. You should come." No apology. No explanation. Just come. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I visited the land. I stood at the gate early that morning, before the guests arrived. The security guard looked confused when I said my name. He checked a list, frowned, then spoke into his radio. Moments later, a manager rushed out, pale and flustered. "Mrs. Adeyemi," he said, bowing slightly. "We weren't expecting you today." I looked past him, at the mansion rising from the earth I once walked barefoot on. I said softly. And for the first time, I felt the balance shift. I arrived again that evening, this time as a guest, not a shadow. Cars lined the driveway like a parade of success, sleek, expensive, unfamiliar. Music spilled from inside the mansion, bass heavy, laughter loud. For a moment, I stayed in my car and watched strangers celebrate a life that no longer included me unless it was convenient. I stepped out anyway. The doors were open wide. Crystal lights reflected off polished floors. Someone handed me a drink I didn't ask for. No one recognized me. That hurt more than I expected. Then I saw Daniel. He stood near the staircase, glass in hand, telling a story to a group of people who leaned in as if every word mattered. He looked confident. Taller somehow. When our eyes met, surprise flashed across his face, quickly buried under a smile meant for an audience. "Mom," he said, louder than necessary. "You made it." I nodded. I said I would. He hugged me briefly, awkwardly, like you hug a distant relative. Then he gestured around. "What do you think?" I looked. Really looked. The floors gleamed. The walls were flawless. Everything was perfect and cold. "It's impressive," I said. "You've done well." Relief crossed his face. Approval still mattered to him, even if he pretended it didn't. He pulled me into the circle. Introductions followed, names I forgot the moment they were said. Investors. Designers. Friends who hadn't known him when he struggled. One woman smiled at me kindly and said, "You must be so proud. Your son built all this himself." Daniel laughed. "Hard work pays off." I smiled too, but something inside me settled. Calm. Certain. Later, he gave a speech. Thanked mentors. Thanked the market. Thanked himself. He never thanked family. I didn't expect him to. As applause filled the room, I noticed a man near the back watching me closely. The developer. He gave a small, respectful nod. Daniel finished to cheers. Before we continue, I said quietly. The microphone was still in his hand. He looked at me confused. "Yeah, Mom. May I say something?" A ripple of curiosity moved through the crowd. Daniel hesitated, then handed me the microphone with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I didn't raise my voice. "I won't take much time," I said. "I just wanted to say how proud I am of my son. Not just for what he's built, but for how far he's come." Daniel relaxed. I continued. "This land has seen many dreams. Some fulfilled. Some forgotten. My husband once believed this place would matter. People laughed at him. But he believed anyway." Murmurs began. "I'm grateful," I said, "that the land he protected is being used so beautifully." Silence fell. Daniel frowned. "Mom." The developer stepped forward. "If I may clarify," he said smoothly, "the land lease agreement." Daniel turned sharply. "What lease?" The room froze. I met my son's eyes. There was no anger in me. Only truth. "You own the house," I said gently. "But the land, that's still mine." The words didn't echo. They landed. Heavy. Final. Daniel stared at me, color draining from his face. Laughter died. Phones lowered. Someone whispered, "What does that mean?" "It means," I said softly, "that success has roots. And some roots are deeper than you think." No one clapped. No one spoke. Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, then looked around, at the people, the walls, the ground beneath his feet. For the first time that night, he looked small. I handed the microphone back and walked away, my steps steady, my heart strangely light. Outside, the night air was cool. I breathed deeply. I hadn't come to embarrass him. I'd come to remind him. And the lesson had only just begun. I didn't drive away right away. I sat in the car, hands resting on the steering wheel, listening to the distant music struggle to restart behind me. My phone buzzed once. Then again. I didn't look. Some moments deserve silence. Inside that house, confusion was blooming like a slow fire. I knew because I'd seen that look before on Daniel's face when he was a boy and realized he'd misunderstood something important. Only this time, there was no room to pretend it was small. By morning, the calls came nonstop. Daniel. Unknown numbers. A voicemail from his assistant, her voice too careful. I let them wait. The truth was simple, even if it sounded unbelievable to everyone else. Years ago, when my husband was still alive, we'd been offered a chance. The land was nothing then. Dust, weeds, and mockery. Banks laughed us out of offices. Family said we were foolish. But my husband saw what others didn't. So we bought the land quietly in my name, because my credit was clean and my instincts steady. When he died, grief swallowed me whole. I didn't sell. I didn't build. I just held on. Years passed. Developers came knocking. I said no until the right one came, with patience, respect, and vision. The contract was clear. The house could be built. The land would remain mine. Long-term lease. Renewal clauses. Protection. Daniel never asked. And I never volunteered. By noon, he showed up at my door. He looked different without the crowd. Smaller. Tired. Angry and afraid in equal measure. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked the moment I opened the door. I stepped aside and let him in. "Sit," I said. He didn't. "You let me build a house on land you own. Do you know how that makes me look?" I nodded. "It makes you look like someone who forgot where he came from." His jaw tightened. "This could ruin me." "No," I said calmly. "Lying could ruin you. This won't. If you're honest." He laughed bitterly. "You humiliated me." "I corrected an assumption," I replied. "There's a difference." He finally sat, head in his hands. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "I worked for that house," he said quietly. "Every late night. Every sacrifice." "I know," I said. "And I never took that from you." "Then why now?" I met his eyes. "Because you invited the world into your success and left me outside. Because you forgot gratitude. And because power reveals character." Silence again. Thicker this time. "What do you want?" he asked. I smiled faintly. "What I've always wanted. Respect. Honesty. And a son who remembers his roots." He swallowed. "I'm not taking your house," I continued. "I'm protecting the land. And I'm giving you a choice. We renegotiate publicly, with transparency. Or we let lawyers speak." He exhaled slowly. "You planned this." I shook my head. I prepared for it. When he left, his shoulders were heavier. But something else was there too, understanding. That evening, the developer called. "You handled that with grace," he said. "Grace comes from patience," I replied. "And patience comes from knowing your worth." The mansion still stood. The land still breathed beneath it. And for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. Because the truth had finally found daylight. The story didn't stay quiet. It never does. By the end of the week, whispers had turned into headlines, not loud ones, but sharp. Business blogs speculated. Neighbors talked. Some praised the savvy grandmother. Others called me manipulative. I didn't read most of it. Noise has a way of fading when you don't feed it. Daniel came back 3 days later. This time, he knocked. I opened the door and saw something I hadn't seen in a long time: humility. "I've been thinking," he said. "Good," I replied. "Come in." We sat at the same table where he'd once done homework, where his father had balanced bills and dreams. Daniel looked around, really seeing the place for the first time in years. "I didn't mean to erase you," he said quietly. "I just kept moving." "I know," I said. "But moving forward doesn't mean cutting ties." He nodded. "The investors are nervous. They want clarity." "You'll give it to them," I said. "And they'll respect you more for it." He looked surprised. "You think so?" "People fear secrets," I said. "Not truth." That afternoon, we met with lawyers. Papers were reviewed. Terms clarified. The agreement remained the same, but now it was understood. Transparent. Solid. Daniel insisted on a statement. He stood in front of cameras a day later and said, "The land my home stands on belongs to my mother. It always has. I'm proud of that. Everything I've built stands on her strength." It wasn't perfect. But it was honest. The reaction surprised him. Investors stayed. Some even praised the stability of a long-term family-held lease. The narrative shifted. Wisdom replaced scandal. That night, Daniel came over for dinner. No cameras. No audience. Just us. "I forgot how good your cooking is," he said with a small smile. "I never stopped," I replied. After dinner, he hesitated. "I want you to come by more. The house, it shouldn't feel empty." I looked at him for a long moment. "I don't need invitations," I said gently. "I need inclusion." He nodded. "Then consider this an open door." Weeks passed. The mansion softened. Laughter returned, quieter but real. Daniel changed not overnight, but intentionally. He asked questions. Listened. Introduced me with pride, not obligation. One afternoon, we stood together on the lawn. He looked down at the ground beneath our feet. "You really believed in this place," he said. "I believed in us," I replied. He smiled. "I still have a lot to learn." Good, I said. So do I. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the land, I felt something settle, not victory, not revenge, but balance. The house was his. The land was mine. And the future, we would share, honestly, this time. The months that followed were quieter than the chaos that had come before, but in that quiet, change took root. Daniel invited me over regularly, not for appearances, not for validation, but because he genuinely wanted my company. The mansion felt alive again, but this time, it was layered with history, patience, and shared respect. We'd walk the grounds together, pointing out corners that I remembered when they were nothing but weeds. He asked questions I hadn't expected, about the contracts, the developers, the decisions I made in silence. I answered honestly, giving him insight without shame, giving him lessons without lectures. One evening, as the golden light dipped low over the mansion, Daniel turned to me. "You know," he said softly, "I thought success was about proving myself. I see now, it's about understanding where I come from." I nodded. Exactly. A foundation is more than bricks and mortar. It's the patience, sacrifice, and wisdom that built the person standing on it. He laughed quietly, almost embarrassed by the weight of the truth. "I'm sorry I forgot," he said. "I didn't mean to push you aside." "You didn't," I said. "You just forgot for a while. But remembering is what matters now." That night, we had dinner on the veranda, the sunset painting everything in warm amber. The house was vibrant with life, guests, laughter, celebration, but the land beneath it hummed with history, roots, and quiet power. I realized then that the story wasn't about the mansion or even the land. It was about respect. About acknowledging those who came before. About teaching lessons in subtle ways that speak louder than confrontation ever could. Daniel and I didn't speak much about the incident afterward. Words were unnecessary. Trust had been rebuilt not through arguments, but through presence, humility, and acknowledgement. The people who attended the housewarming never fully understood what happened that day. To them, it was a simple property matter. To me, and to Daniel, it was a turning point, a reminder that wealth and pride are temporary, but integrity and family endure. As I watched him walk across the property one evening, phone in hand, documenting his achievements, I smiled quietly to myself. He no longer needed to prove anything to the world or to me. He had learned that true success is not only built, it is inherited through patience, guidance, and the quiet sacrifices of those who came before. And in that moment, I felt complete. Not because I had one, but because the truth had been seen, understood, and respected. The mansion, the land, the sun, I had them all in balance now. And that balance, more than anything else, was worth every silent year, every hidden document, every quiet step I had taken to prepare for this very day.